The night after I thought it was over, a text appeared. "You think it's done? Mrs. Rains?" Check whose name's still on the house. My heart didn't race. My mind did. I reached for that old folder. Steady hands. Steady soul. The truth wasn't finished with me yet. The night air off Lake Michigan carried that mix of perfume and chill you only get in June, sharp enough to make my bones remember I wasn't young anymore. Lakeview Pavilion gleamed with its glass walls and white tablecloths, the kind of place that smells like money and champagne. I walked in alone, my navy dress pressed neat, my late husband's gold bracelet tight on my wrist. That bracelet always steadied me when I had to face a room that thought I didn't belong. The first thing I noticed wasn't the lights or the lake, it was the looks. Polite smiles that slid off my face before they landed. Folks glanced past me like I was part of the staff. 68 years on this earth teaches you to stop pretending you didn't see it. My name's Loretta Rains, widow, mother. And the reason my son Marcus even has a degree to brag about. I paid for his first car in cash, wrote checks for his first semester when scholarships didn't cover it, and never asked to be thanked. I came tonight not to prove anything, just to show up with grace. Celine Ward was easy to spot, designer ivory dress, gold nails, hair curled like a magazine spread. She moved through the crowd on Marcus's arm, introducing him to everyone like a stock option. "Marcus Rains, lead engineer, Northwestern grad," she sang out. My name came out low, half swallowed. This is his mom, Loretta. I smiled because I was raised right. But in my mind, I was already taking notes. They sat me close to the front, but not at the head table. Right by the flower wall, perfect for photos, invisible for conversation. A woman I didn't know leaned over and said, "You must be proud your son's marrying up." I just smiled, tucked that line away like a receipt. In my world, you never fight the first insult. You let people talk long enough, and they'll hand you everything you need to know. The laughter grew louder as dinner started. Celine made her rounds, pouring charm like syrup. Marcus kept that polite smile, the one I taught him to use when he didn't want to fight. But something in his eyes looked tired. He was letting her run the show. That, more than anything, told me I'd lost a piece of him to this room. Then came the tap of a champagne glass. Selena's voice cut through the chatter. "We're doing something fun tonight. Everyone who loves us is pitching in, $65 a head, just to keep things fair." People chuckled, assuming it was a joke, until I saw her eyes on me. That look said it wasn't. She added sweet as sugar. "We just want to see who's really supporting this union." Her friends cackled. One shouted, "If you can't swing 65, skip the lobster tail at the wedding." They thought they were being funny. They didn't realize I was memorizing every word. Insult in America has a taste. It's metal, like a penny under your tongue. Marcus didn't defend me, didn't say, "That's my mother." He just froze, eyes darting to the floor. That silence, his silence, cut deeper than the insult. I lifted my glass, calm as ever. 65? Cash or card? Baby. My voice didn't tremble. I smiled the same way I used to at clients when they tried to hide numbers from me. Selena blinked, then laughed. "Card's fine. Debit's easier to track." The room laughed with her. Debit. Easier to track. She thought she was clever. I thought she'd just made her first audit trail. Inside, I wasn't angry. I was awake. I'd spent 30 years in compliance, tracing lies from spreadsheets to signatures. This girl wanted to test me? Fine. I'd treat her like any other file I ever handled. Open, review, expose. She leaned close, still smiling. "We just don't want to carry people who can't afford to be part of the family. Nothing personal." I looked her dead in the eye. I didn't say a word. That was the moment I stopped seeing her as my son's fiancé. From that moment on, she was an account. I reached into my purse, not for my wallet, but for my phone. I didn't make a call. I just rested my thumb on the screen. She saw it, mistook it for surrender, and smiled wider. Letter. Where I come from. We don't raise our voice first. We raise our records. I left that dinner quiet, walking through the humid Chicago night with my heels dangling from 2 fingers and my back straight like nothing in that room had touched me. The streetlights shimmered off the lake, and every passing car seemed louder than the laughter that had followed me out. That kind of noise stays in your head, the kind that's not sound but insult. I smiled at the valet when he called, "Have a good night, ma'am," because women my age were trained for that. Keep the smile. Keep the spine. Never let disrespect see you cry. That's survival, not pride. Sitting behind the wheel, I let the engine idle. The words $65 looped in my head. It wasn't the number. It was the meaning. Pay to belong, pay to exist. I'd moved money across oceans in my lifetime, but somehow a $65 jab cut deeper than $1 million loss. My phone buzzed. Marcus. You okay? 2 words. No apology. I stared at the screen, the glow of it painting my hands pale. At 68, I've learned silence speaks louder than 1,000 explanations. I didn't call back. Silence teaches adults what lectures can't. Instead, I called Gloria. Oldest friend I've got, from church choir to hospital visits. "Baby, you want me to come sit with you?" she asked. I said no. Lied through my teeth, told her. It wasn't that bad. Truth is, I didn't want her seeing me like that, shrinking in my own car. I parked in front of my house, left the keys in the ignition, and sat there while the dashboard clock clicked past midnight. That's when I realized the danger isn't when people disrespect you. It's when you decide what to do after. Morning came slow and gray. I was halfway through my first coffee when Gloria texted again. "You need to see this." She sent screenshots from some group chat. My stomach tightened before I even opened them. I knew. I always know when cruelty travels. The first one said, "LOL, should we just Venmo his mama? She looked like she was counting singles in her purse." Then came rows of laughing emojis. Another said, "I just don't want to carry anyone who can't show up for us. If it's too much for her, we need to know now." That one was from Celine, with a pink heart. That heart hurt more than the words. Polite cruelty always wears perfume. I whispered to myself, so this is the price of class. They didn't just insult me, they published it. Used me like content. And then I saw another line. Marcus is leveling up anyway. That one landed like a slap. My son, my boy I worked overtime for, turned into a status upgrade. I stared at the screen and told the audience in my head, the people like me who know humiliation doesn't stay in the room anymore. It circulates. It trends. It collects hearts and laughs. In my day, shame stayed in whispers. Now it's screenshots. I read one more message. That purse looked like Macy's clearance. I marked the time, the sender, the tone. That wasn't gossip anymore. That was evidence. My hand started shaking, not because I was sad, but because the anger had turned surgical. Sadness is loud. Cold anger is quiet. And I was very, very quiet. Around 9, Marcus called. His voice was nervous, half whisper, half excuse. "Mom, Celine didn't mean it like that. She's just trying to balance costs. You know weddings?" I cut him off softly. "Baby, I'm not mad about money. I'm looking at respect." The silence after that sentence was long enough to measure the gap between us. He said, "She just wants everyone pulling their weight. pulling their weight. That phrase hit like a memo before a layoff. I asked, "Marcus, did you know she put my name in a group chat?" The quiet on the line told me everything I needed. He didn't. I pictured him sitting there, realizing he wasn't even managing his own life anymore. I looked at my hands. They'd stopped shaking. "Listen, sweetheart," I said evenly. "I will never fight you for you, but I won't sit in a room that calls me charity. Do you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, small as a boy again. I ended the call. The warning phase was over. Where I come from, when you stop talking, that's when the real work starts. I opened my work phone, not my personal one. That's how I knew it wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about process. Compliance doesn't rage. Compliance records. Coffee cold, blinds half open. I started pulling up directories only certain people can access. Nothing illegal, just the skills of a woman who spent decades tracing hidden things. Celine once bragged at dinner that she banked with us, said debit is easier to track. Well, baby, that's true. By 9:58 a.m., I already knew which accounts were hers, which ones were questionable, and exactly which colleague to call next. I slipped on my blazer, clipped my badge to the lapel, and whispered to myself, if she wants to run it like an invoice, I'll treat her like an account. I locked the door behind me and stepped into the morning light, not as Marcus's mama, but as Loretta Raines from Federal Trust. The next morning, I walked into Federal Trust Bank like I had for 20 years. Navy slacks, soft flats, badge swinging on its lanyard, and that same calm that unsettles people who expect noise. My coworkers nodded. The security guard called, "Morning, Ms. Raines." And I smiled because here, people remembered my name, inside these walls. I wasn't Marcus's mother or a background extra in somebody's celebration. I was Loretta from compliance, the woman whose reports could freeze an account in 30 minutes flat. I sat down at my desk, powered up the console, and let the hum of the servers drown out everything that had happened at that dinner. In my world, we don't move on emotion. We move on paper. Paper holds longer than pride. Feelings don't win cases. Documentation does. That line played in my head as I logged in. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was doing my job. But if my job happened to brush against Celine Ward's world, well, that was just timing. Celine thought $65 was the price of dignity. Let's see how she feels when numbers start talking back. I typed Ward Influence Media into the review portal. The system blinked, searched, and populated lines of data like a slow confession. Deposits inconsistent with invoices. Withdrawals in the dead of night. Transfers labeled consulting retainer moving from corporate to personal debit cards. In banking language, that means you're laundering emotion, trying to make dirty money look professional. A larger deposit caught my eye. R. Ward Family Holdings. Her daddy's name. Only problem? R. Ward's been dead 6 years. I didn't need to say the word fraud. The system already whispered it. Scrolling further, I saw a flurry of activity right after her engagement post went viral. Payments to a wedding photographer, an event planner, a luxury venue hold, all pulled from business funds. I timestamped each one. Evidence isn't loud, it's tidy. "See, baby," I murmured to no one. "This is how you slap somebody. You don't yell, you print." I started drafting a preliminary escalation, not sending it yet, just shaping it. If I moved too early, they'd say it was personal. And personal is how women my age get discredited. I needed the system to see it first. I called out across the floor, "Tasha, got a second?" She came over, young, eager, sharp as a pin. I liked that about her. "Can you cross-check the SSN on Ward Influence Media and confirm the status?" I asked. She nodded, typing quick, her pink nails clicking like a clock. While she worked, I reminded the audience, older women know power isn't volume, it's patience. A few minutes later, Tasha leaned toward me, voice lowered. Milay Rains, one of those accounts is using a deceased social. It's flagged as inactive. She glanced up, eyes wide. Confirmation always lands harder when somebody else says it. I'd suspected, but now it was evidence. Then she whispered, "Is this about that girl from the party?" I froze a moment. I hadn't told her a word, which meant my humiliation had leaked into the office. That stung deeper than the screenshots. Family, disrespect wounds, pride, workplace whispers threaten survival. I straightened in my chair. Baby, log what you found with time and date. Send it to compliance intake. Don't copy me. Her eyebrows rose. You want me to. I want the system to see it, not just me. She hesitated, then smiled, understanding the play. People really don't know who you are, do they? She said quietly. I looked her dead in the eye. They think I'm just somebody's mama. I paused long enough for the meaning to settle. Somebody's mama is about to file. The afternoon light dimmed over downtown when I printed the preliminary packet and slid it into a slim black folder. Clean edges, no drama, just proof. I ran my fingers along it like a craftsman testing the weight of a tool. What I held wasn't revenge, it was leverage. I clocked out, waved goodnight to security, and stepped into the evening heat. My phone was already at my ear. This is Loretta Rains in compliance, I said on voicemail. I'll have something for you in the morning. That was all. Curiosity is its own kind of pressure. Driving home. The city lights blurred against my windshield. The black folder lay on the passenger seat. Silent as a secret. Last night they'd laughed at me. Tonight, I carried something heavier than laughter. Proof. The house was quiet that night. I had just set the black folder on the coffee table and turned the TV on for noise when my phone buzzed. Gloria's name lit the screen. Her text said, Loretta, you need to see this. There was a link underneath. I opened it, expecting gossip. What I saw was worse. A TikTok, shaky and grainy, filmed across the Lakeview Pavilion ballroom. I could hear the jazz band, laughter, and Celine's voice ringing through the speakers. She stood there with a champagne flute, smiling like she owned the world. The caption read, When his mama can't cover her plate, Suijak broke teacher wedding tax. My stomach didn't drop. It froze. The video played, Celine laughing, saying, It's $65 a person, y'all. If you can't contribute, you probably don't need lobster at my wedding. Laughter roared around her like applause. Then, a voice off camera, one of her friends, I could tell, said, Does she even have a card, or is she cash only? The crowd laughed again. I paused it right there. That sentence carried the poison of 1,000 little stereotypes, not about money, about age, class, and worth. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I folded my hands, stared at that frozen frame, and whispered, So now I'm content. That wasn't pain talking. That was clarity. They hadn't just insulted me. They'd branded me. They'd turned me into entertainment. I looked straight into that screen and said to myself, You wanted a show? Baby? Fine. Let's talk about brand management. Scrolling through the comments, my breath stayed even. $65 ain't that deep. She dressed like Sunday offering plate. If she broke, she shouldn't come. And then, the one that burned hottest, Marcus leveling up for real. That wasn't about me. That was about my son. As if marrying her was a promotion. That was when my hand clenched, I forwarded the video to Marcus. No text, no warning. Let him see it unfiltered. 2 minutes later, the phone rang. Where did you get that? His voice cracked. For the first time, there was fear in it. She invited the internet into our family, I said evenly. So now it's not personal, it's public. And when it's public, it's paperwork. He tried to defend her. She didn't mean, I cut him off. Marcus, she made me a joke, but she made you a prop. Which one hurts more? The silence that followed told me he understood. I ended the call without another word. Then I replayed the video and saw it. Celine holding that cream-colored envelope I'd handed her at dinner, using it to fan herself while laughing. That envelope was my gift, my husband's old stationery. Inside was a $25,000 check made out to both of them. A quiet blessing. No audience, no announcement. And she hadn't even opened it. In the video, she joked, she brought a church envelope like we're passing plates. Her friend howled. I could almost hear the echo in my living room. My jaw didn't tighten. My heart didn't race. I just looked at that screen and said softly, "You ever feed somebody and then watch them spit on your plate? That's the flavor." I walked to the coffee table and picked up the same envelope. Still sealed, still dignified, and I realized, plain as daylight, Celine wasn't just rude, she was reckless. Reckless with my son's future, reckless with my name, reckless with money. She thinks this family is a stage, I said out loud, and my son is lighting. I tore the check in half and dropped both pieces into the shred bin, not out of anger, out of peace. She didn't earn the blessing she mocked. Then I picked up my phone again. This time, not for Marcus, not for Gloria. I called internal operations. "This is Loretta Rains," I said, calm as still water. "Go ahead and initiate the hold on the ward accounts ending in 2275. Effective immediately." I hung up and leaned back, feeling my first real smile since the dinner. Tomorrow morning, the laughter would stop, because by sunrise, Celine Ward was going to wake up broke. Morning sunlight slid through the blinds of my office, painting thin gold lines across the desk. I stirred my coffee once, slow, calm, and logged into the system. This wasn't revenge, it was procedure. When you freeze an account, I told the audience, you don't touch the money. You touch the air around it, you take away movement, and that's how you get attention. The red flag appeared beside Ward Influence Media. Status, hold active, timestamp, 9:14 a.m. Every click, every note, every signature, legal, traceable, perfect. I sipped again. Tasha looked up from across the floor and gave me a small nod. She didn't smile. She didn't have to. Respect doesn't need sound. At 10:30, my desk phone rang. Caller ID, Ward. Celine. I let it ring 3 times. On the 4th, I answered, crisp, Federal Trust Compliance. Loretta speaking. Her voice came through like static. "My accounts, something's wrong, I can't make payroll. My card declined at the gas station," I said evenly. "Then you might want to contact your accountant." Pause. "Or your conscience." And I hung up. The silence after that click was sweeter than sugar. I looked at my reflection in the monitor and said softly, "Now she knows who I am." By noon, Marcus called. Panic wrapped around every word. "Mom, what did you do? Not how are you? Not are you okay? Just what did you do?" I kept my tone calm. "I did my job." He exhaled hard. "The company card's frozen. Celine's crying. Vendors are calling." I let him spill the noise before asking, "Marcus, when did she tell you your mother was broke?" He hesitated. "That's different," I said. "No, baby. It's the same language. Just a different account." I could almost hear the moment his anger cracked into realization. "You humiliated her," he said. I answered, "No, she humiliated herself. I just turned the lights on." His breathing shifted, half shame, half disbelief. "She's saying you filed something," I cut in. "Tell her to check her messages. She'll find what happens when you use a dead man's number." He didn't speak again. He knew. I didn't ruin her. I stopped her. That afternoon, I drove to River North. I wasn't going to fight. I came to witness. The condo building gleamed glass and gray steel. But inside the lobby, chaos had a sound. Celine's voice. "No, I said I can't pay them. It's under review, federal review." Her heels clicked fast across the marble. Mascara streaked. Then she saw me. Her face twisted. "You ruined me." I stepped closer, steady. "No, baby, you did that when you laughed?" A delivery driver nearby whispered, "That's the lady from TikTok, right?" Heads turned, cameras lifted. The same crowd that once mocked me now stared at her. That's how fast gravity flips. Marcus ran out of the elevator, face pale. "Mom, please." I looked at him, voice like glass. "When you choose silence over truth, you pick your side. Don't call me to clean it up after—" Celine's phone buzzed nonstop. She was crying now, pleading with someone invisible, and in that chaos, I felt done. Not proud, not vengeful, just finished. I turned and walked out. "They turned me into a joke," I told the viewers later. "Now the internet turned it back. That's not vengeance, that's gravity." On the drive home, the Chicago skyline glowed orange against the setting sun. My phone lit up again. Unknown number. I answered. "Ms. Rains," a man said. "This is Federal Liaison. We reviewed your report. We're opening a full case. You may be called to testify." "I'll be ready," I said, and hung up. At home. I poured myself a glass of wine. My phone buzzed again. Gloria. Her text read, "Baby, you're on the news." The wine glass was still half full when the newscaster said my name. I didn't imagine it. There it was, clear as Sunday bells. Loretta Rains, a senior compliance officer. The screen showed the Lakeview Pavilion lit up like a memory. The anchor's voice said, "Sources allege funds tied to Ward Influence Media are under investigation." They didn't mention my humiliation, just her financial irregularities. That's when I realized the story had flipped. My phone buzzed nonstop. Gloria, my church sisters, old co-workers, even my neighbor from 10 years ago. "Girl, is that you on Channel 7? I didn't flinch. I turned down the TV volume, kept my voice even. "That's me, and that's why I pay my bills on time," I told my audience in narration. "When you keep your name clean, you can survive the spotlight. Light only burns what's dirty." Then the anchor said it. "The bride-to-be may pursue legal action for defamation." I actually laughed. Out loud. "There it is," I murmured. "She thinks she can sue her way out of sin." I shook my head, calm but cold. I had lived long enough to know. The louder people yell victim, the guiltier they usually are. 20 minutes later, pounding rattled my door. Marcus stood there, face tight, eyes wild. I let him in but didn't touch him. I sat in my chair, let him pace holes in my rug. "Ma, what did you do?" he shouted. "She's saying you abused your position. She can't pay vendors, the bank." I raised my hand. "Sit. Speak slow. Tell the truth in full sentences." His jaw locked. "You're ruining everything," he said. "We can't even book the venue now. No one wants to be associated with us." That word stung deeper than any insult. Us. Like I was already out the family. "Say it again," I whispered. "Us who?" He dropped his eyes. I stood, pointed toward the mantel where his daddy's picture sat. "Marcus, look at him. Now look at me. Now, say it. Say you're okay marrying a woman who told the internet your mama wasn't worth $65. He opened his mouth, then closed it. No sound. That silence was the first honest thing between us in months. She was just mad, he stammered. She said you embarrassed her? I cut him clean. No, baby. She embarrassed herself. I just turned on the light, and when roaches scatter, you don't blame the flashlight. He rubbed his temples, whispered. She said she's going to sue you and the bank if the money's not released. I smiled slow. Is that right? She's going to sue me? Next morning, we sat across a glass table at Federal Trust. Her makeup said fragile, but her eyes said defense. She started. This is harassment. You can't just freeze my accounts. This is personal. Before I spoke, Arthur Bell slid a file across the table. Ms. Guy Ward, you're free to sue. Just note that using an EIN tied to a deceased individual is a federal offense. Would you like the dates of transfer read aloud? Her face drained. Her lawyer blinked fast, flipping through notes that wouldn't save her. I didn't gloat. I folded my hands and said, Baby, you don't talk to me like that in my own name. Arthur continued, cool as air conditioning. Ms. Raines acted by protocol. If you pursue defamation, this becomes public record. Celine's expression shifted, anger to panic to spin. She wasn't sorry, she was calculating optics, and Marcus saw it. He leaned back, whispering, Lord, have mercy. Then she snapped, loud enough for the hallway. If your mama loved you, she wouldn't be doing this to us. I didn't blink. I looked at my son. Marcus, you gonna let her say that about me out loud? The room went silent. He had to choose his side, and everyone knew whichever name he spoke next would be permanent. The room froze after I asked, Marcus, you gonna let her say that about me out loud? Every breath sounded like glass cracking. The air vent hummed. Arthur Bell sat still with his folder, and my son stared at two women who'd both shaped his life, one who raised him and one who tried to rewrite him. Marcus's throat moved before his mouth did. Celine, he said softly, you don't talk about my mother like that. Not Loretta, not her, my mother. That was blood reclaiming itself. Celine blinked fast. Marcus, baby, she's trying to destroy us. She froze my accounts. She embarrassed me. Stop. His voice broke, but he didn't waver. Just stop. I sat still, watching a man wake up. This wasn't a son protecting his mama. This was a man recognizing a threat standing in heels beside him. Legacy had just spoken louder than lust. He exhaled slow, hands trembling, and said what none of us expected. We're done. I can't marry you. The silence that followed was long enough to build a fence around. Celine's jaw clenched. She wasn't crying, she was calculating. You'll regret this. You and your little church mama. I didn't blink. Baby, I said evenly, when you're my age, you don't argue. You document. Marcus slid the engagement ring across the polished table. The clink echoed like a closing door. She refused to touch it. Keep it. I don't want anything from you or your broke family anyway, Marcus whispered. Don't ever call my mother broke again. That was the sound of a bloodline mending itself. She stormed out, her perfume trailing behind like smoke. Marcus didn't chase her. I breathed out slow. I almost lost him, I told myself. Almost. That evening, my kitchen was quiet. No TV, no music, just two plates between us. He sat hunched over, eyes swollen, voice low. Mama, I'm sorry. I shook my head. You don't apologize for waking up. He talked. Really talked. He told me how Celine introduced herself to clients as future CFO of the Raines household. how she told him to ease me out of money matters, how she wanted him to move his 401k into her business. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When he whispered, she said after we married, I wouldn't need you anymore. Something deep in me burned clean. That's not love, son, I said softly. That's erasure. He cried quiet, not loud, not boyish, but broken. I almost married someone who hates you. No, I told him. You almost married someone who hates herself. I cooked collards, cornbread, fried chicken, not to comfort him, but to reground him. Food is covenant in our house. By the time he finished, he was breathing steady again. That boy walked in as her fiancé, I whispered to the audience, and walked out as my son again. Sunday morning came bright and soft. I sat in my pew under that old wood paneling, fan tucked in my hymnal. Folks knew. Word had traveled, but they weren't whispering scandal. They were whispering strength. That's a strong woman, one said. Handled it like a lady, said another. In our world, that's restoration. Public confirmation that your name's still clean. After service, Ms. Washington cupped Marcus's face. God didn't show you the truth to hurt you, son. He showed you so you wouldn't sign your life away blind. He nodded, eyes wet but lighter. Then she looked at me. Baby, you protected your child and never had to raise your hand. That's wisdom. Outside, the church parking lot buzzed. Marcus stood tall and said, I need to apologize to my mama. The lot went silent. I let somebody talk about her like she wasn't the reason I'm alive. Won't happen again. That silence? That was redemption. I didn't cry. I just said, all right, baby. Later, a deacon's niece whispered that group chats were calling Celine the bride who defrauded her own wedding. The internet had turned. Gravity was working. That night, back home, Marcus helped me carry groceries inside. I sat at my kitchen table, pulled out my husband's old manila folder, the deed, the insurance, every account in my name only. Nobody, I said softly, is ever going to use my boy to get to this again. Then I looked at the camera and told my viewers, Chapter 8. Ain't about her anymore. It's about legacy. The morning after church was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own pulse. My kitchen smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. The manila folder sat open where I left it last night, spreading its pages like a promise across my table. Deed, insurance, retirement accounts, every line of my life in ink. I said to the viewers, everybody wants romance. Nobody talks about paperwork. That's where folks get robbed. I called my lawyer, Miss Harris. She'd been with me through James's estate, steady and discreet. Loretta, she said, you ready to make this official? I told her. Yes, baby. Let's lock it down. She came over with her notary bag, and I made Marcus sit at that table with me. This is what protection looks like, I told him. I showed him the deed. If something happens to me, this house goes to you only. No spouse, no girlfriend, no transfer. This is family ground, and it stays that way. He nodded, still quiet but learning. Then came the moment that felt better than any revenge, crossing Selena's name off my accounts. I didn't scratch it out in anger. I did it steady, slow, deliberate. You see this line, son? That's what it means to take your name back. He smiled small and said, You're locking down the Rains name, I said. That's right, baby. Legacy ain't for sale. I added one new page, the Loretta and James Rains Start Clean Fund, just enough to help any grandbaby with housing, trade school, or college, but only if they keep clean of fraud and sign the respect clause. You can love people and still set boundaries. I told Marcus, love without rules is just bait. That afternoon, sunlight poured across my dining table. I set up my phone and hit record. No makeup tricks, no filters, just me, pearls and truth. My name is Loretta Rains, I began. I'm 68, been in banking 30 years, raised my son on the South Side. I taught him 2 things: don't steal, and don't let anybody steal you. My voice was calm but sharp as glass. I never said her name. I said a young woman. I laid the story down in clean lines, how she asked me for $65 to eat at my own son's dinner, filmed me for laughs, and tried to use my name for gain. So I didn't fight in the parking lot, I told them. I did the paperwork. Then I leaned in and said, sweetheart, I don't yell. I audit. I explained the truth, that the accounts were under review, that I'd recused myself, that the case was now federal. Older viewers know. That's how you protect yourself legally. I spoke to the mothers watching. You've been paying bills since before these kids were born. Don't let anybody make you feel small. You are not broke. You are the foundation. When I posted, the phone lit up like Christmas. Gloria sent hearts. Miss. Washington wrote, baby. That's how you close a chapter. Marcus texted first this time. I'm proud of you. Ma. By sunset, I was on my porch. The heat broke into a soft breeze. My son was inside fixing the sink, humming an old gospel tune. I watched the light fade over the neighborhood I built a life in and said softly, people will treat you how they think they can get away with treating you. Your job is to remind them you're not on clearance. Arthur called to confirm. Her injunction was denied. Every venue pulled her contracts. Consequences arrived right on time. That night, I slept with the hall light on. Not fear, just peace. The win, I whispered. Ain't her tears. It's getting my son back and tightening my papers. I leaned back in my chair, looked straight ahead, and smiled. So if anybody still thinks I'm just some quiet little bank lady, baby, I froze her life with one phone call. And I'd do it again if you come for mine. That night, just before sleep found me. A message blinked on my phone. Unknown number, no name, only one line. You think it's over? Mrs. Rains. Check whose name's still on the house. My heart stayed steady, but my hand reached for the folder. Maybe Legacy wasn't finished testing me yet.